Hi, so glad you're here with me today. The topic is being too nice can be dangerous. We're going to jump right into that in a moment. But first, a special hello to my listeners in Reykjavik, Iceland. You are on my travel list. I have got to get there. I'll definitely make an announcement as I'm traveling to all these different places that I'll be going to in the next few years, but you are on my list. I have got to get there. So thanks for tuning in. So great to have you here. Let's talk about this. I mentioned this topic to a few friends, and they're like, what do you mean being too nice is dangerous? Let me just start by saying I'm not advocating not being a good person. Of course not. That would be so off my personality and the way that I think that there's just not much that could go that far. But let's talk about how women are raised to be nice. We're socialized to be nice from the very beginning, from very early childhood. We're encouraged to ignore our own needs and put those of others first. Young girls are asked, they're told to ask nicely, be nice, putting the comfort of others, again, ahead of our own. Over time, we come to accept this and find exceptions to those ideas to be rude and uncomfortable. So I want to talk about how being too nice is really the problem. There's a thing called the nice guy syndrome. And this is a behavior pattern where a person seeks approval and validation by being extremely nice and accommodating to others, even at their own expense. The idea behind this behavior is that by being nice to everyone, they will receive the same kindness in return. However, being too nice can also mean that you become a doormat or a people pleaser. It can mean that you put others' needs ahead of your own. And that can mean that others get away with things they shouldn't. An excessively nice person might never be known on a deep level or be taken seriously. Being too nice can be a sign of weakness. Being too nice can be seen as a sign of weakness, while being kind but assertive can be incredibly powerful. It's important to be open and honest with others and to let them know when something is not acceptable. At the root of extreme niceness are feelings of inadequacy and the need to get approval and validation from others. Overly nice people try to please so that they can feel good about themselves, and it can also be a way to avoid confrontation. So, can being too nice really be dangerous? I'd like to share with you some examples of how this is, in fact, a truth, especially in our culture that expects niceness from women. There's plenty of cultures listening to this show right now that it's the same way or even more so. It can make it unsafe for women to reject unwanted advances or call out problematic behavior without facing the threat of aggression or violence. For example, women might accept hugs they don't want, tolerate uncomfortable compliments, or capitulate to sexual assault to keep themselves safe. I know a lot of you are business owners and people who are out there with jobs and careers. Let's talk about how being too nice can really negatively affect you in business. One is accidental discrimination. A lot of what we consider nice behaviors are ingrained cultural codes that feel like objective judgments. Good manners are a clearer tell of someone's family background than they are of personal character. And when we don't interrogate the origin of what we find rude, we can unknowingly privilege people who came from what people see as the right kind of families. In general, those families are middle class, white, and socially validated. In short, we're reinforcing existing dominance and excluding those that don't fit the mold to everyone's detriment. This constrains innovation and it creates huge blind spots that can be catastrophic for sustainable performance. Not only that, but many of our cognitive shortcuts for trustworthiness are culturally specific. When we make snap judgments based on those shortcuts, we might be doing more harm than good. Maintaining eye contact, for example, is considered polite in many Western cultures, but aggressive and disrespectful in many Eastern cultures. These ideas can also be challenging for the neurodiverse, who may experience social interactions quite differently and may appear to be rude or disengaged when they're simply processing their environment through a different lens. When these small differences add up over the course of a lifetime or over a career, from job interview competency through to social cues, aligned hobbies, and common language, we can accidentally perpetrate a deep divide that leads to huge discrepancies in opportunity, promotions, income, and quality of life. Poor boundaries. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about. Nice people are responsive. They're helpful, courteous, and attentive. These are all positive qualities on paper, but the shadow side can be dangerous. And as we all know, there's a shadow side to everything. When our responsiveness and helpfulness are rewarded consistently, we can feel backed into a corner when we need to say no or establish boundaries around our time and energy, being asked to work outside of hours at no additional pay, being willing to take on another person or several people's responsibilities with no additional pay. Without the skills to push back, many professionals find themselves overworked, frustrated, and resentful, with a bulging email box, an impossible to-do list, and a staggering weight of extra commitments. Setting boundaries requires intention, education, and practice. It isn't an inherent skill. If you've established a reputation based on your niceness, it can feel impossible to decline requests for help or to refuse to attend an event for fear of being rude or damaging relationships. The data is clear on this one. Sustainable compassion requires clear boundaries. Without the skills and confidence to set your own limitations, you're on a fast track to burnout. Number 3 is emotional repression. When we feel pressured or obliged to be pleasant and accommodating because of cultural norms or personal programming, it can be difficult to express healthy disagreement or conflict. When our feelings are hurt or our boundaries are crossed, we've got 2 options: let it out or let it fester. These things do not go away. Our bodies will keep the score, and if letting it out doesn't feel possible, we keep that discontent inside ourselves until it manifests as stress, sadness, anxiety, or loneliness. The impact of that repression isn't just toxic for our personal health. Relationships without an outlet for honest and respectful communication can only ever remain shallow, and over time they become increasingly difficult to feel good about. Quality connection requires honest emotional communication, even when those feelings are challenging to raise. If you're too focused on being nice, you're curtailing the potential of your personal and professional relationships and cheating yourself out of the joy of belonging. Number 4 is gender inequality. The standards we hold for ourselves and others are not applied equally across the gender continuum. Females carry the weight of deeply embedded expectations that are often invisible and internalized. In general, men have far greater latitude to set boundaries, state their opinions, and have confidence in the worthiness of their contribution. We forgive assertiveness, gruffness, and even aggression in male leaders, praising it as strong leadership, while the same behaviors expressed in lesser degrees feel off-putting in our female colleagues. Men are strong, women are hard. Men have conviction, while women are called the B word. Men are clear, while women are difficult. When we value niceness too highly, we can be blind to how unequally we apply these standards, and this creates work environments where men receive more accolades and have more opportunity for advancement. Number 5, overcommitment. People that are too responsive because they want to be nice set themselves up for overcommitment, which will ultimately backfire. When we say yes to too many things, we make an unconscious decision that we'd rather let someone down later than be honest with them right now. When we fail to deliver, we negatively impact other people's efforts, create a reputation for flakiness, and erode trust, connection, and productivity across the board. It's always far better to be realistic about capacity at the beginning than to make last-minute changes to deadlines or ghost people out of shame and panic. I'm going to share with you as a story about my personal life and how that played out when I was still too nice. It was back in the early 2000s, and I was working at a foundation that provided housing for dual diagnosis adults. I supervised 4 adult group homes, and I was an administrator there, but they really paid so poorly to their home managers that they were forever quitting on the spur of the moment, not showing up, and I couldn't blame them. And then the higher administration would say, okay, Ivory, now you're going to work your 40-hour week at the office, and you're going to work 2 to 3 nights this week from the time you get off work till the next morning when you come back to work with the clients, because you're going to work overnight in a home. And that would mean that I was cooking, bathing, dressing, doing laundry, cleaning up, and getting very little sleep, and then coming back and doing it again the next day. And it got to a point where I was working, I would estimate 140 hours a week. And unfortunately, it was during the last few years my daughter was at home before she left to go to college. So I was very resentful at what was going on with this. And they were really holding it over my head, like, this is what you do if you're a team player. And looking back on it now, at what I thought was okay, I would never put up with that. I would not allow that situation now, but that's me now, not me then. I tell you these stories because you might recognize something of yourself in them. The next point is safety risks. One of the most dangerous ways niceness appears in everyday life is when we bend the rules or ignore red flags from a misguided sense of kindness, or let's say you're at a 4-way stop. People that let you go even though they've got the right of way actually make the road less safe for all of us, because we need to count on things going a certain way. These safety risks can also carry grave consequences. A culture that expects niceness, especially in women, makes it unsafe for us to reject unwanted advances or call out problematic behavior without facing the threat of aggression or violence. And again, we accept hugs we don't want, tolerate compliments that make us feel uneasy, and when faced with sexual assault, often capitulate to keep ourselves safe. Because men have been programmed to expect us to be nice, you might hear things like, smile more, you look much prettier when you smile. The potential cost of speaking up is real, and it's too high. Niceness is putting us in real physical danger. Next is lack of progress. Bold ideas, the ones that change the world, transform companies, or provoke social progress, are rarely thought of as nice. Any idea worth doing is going to offend or exclude someone along the way. And if the prospect of doing that feels like something you can't handle, your potential for impact is low. Nice is bland. Nice is boring. Nice is afraid to offend anyone or leave anyone out, so they aren't specific or unique enough to be of value to anyone. We waste time and effort making sure we've covered all our bases, and as a result, we aren't compelling to customers, friends, or employees. When people don't speak up in meetings, call out our flaws and assumptions, or tell us what they really think in an effort to be nice, the quality of our work suffers and the likelihood of successful implementation drops right off a cliff. Alignment is more important than agreement, and it requires authenticity to achieve that. One of the things that people find the most frustrating and common barriers at work is the unwillingness to focus or make trade-offs, because we're afraid to narrow our attention to where we'll have the most impact, diluting our effort across too many projects, marketing to too many different demographics, and juggling too many different plates, while our goals move further out of reach. Clear strategy isn't nice. Transformational change isn't nice. Nice is a mediocre goal for any strategy, plan, or campaign. You'd never put it in your vision, so why retain it as a value? So here are just some of the ways that women self-police their niceness. And I know I'm really talking mostly about women because men aren't raised to be nice, generally. When we've developed a vocal rhythm to accommodate the social need of being nice, With the ends of our sentences often trail up into what teeters on uncertainty, a tendency known as upspeak. I'm not sure if I understand you. I'm not sure if I agree with that. We phrase our answers as though they are questions, not wanting to sound overly assertive or read as aggressive. And since the male voice is still the standard that women are compared to, especially in the workplace, the collaborative and welcoming intention of upspeak gets discounted as holding less gravitas. It's less important. And it's judged as less decisive and authoritative, so it weakens your stance at work. Women's tone of voice is also policed, with those who speak in too high-pitched of a tone being labeled as shrill. There's even a TV show about that. Very good show, by the way. This charge is often thrown at women in broadcasting who use technologies that are biased towards male voices in the first place, and they distort a woman's voice. Women of color face the harshest tone policing, having to fight the angry Black woman trope, both in life and in the workplace, always aware of how they are presenting in a society still ruled by white supremacy. Just as male spaces have historically been hostile to women, white spaces create a multi-layered lose-lose situation for women of color. Women are also less likely to ask for what they want in the workplace after having been socialized from a young age to put the needs of others first. This is in addition to the very real fear of being labeled as aggressive when they do ask, particularly when working in typically male-dominated fields. Women are quicker to be labeled as bossy, emotional, or the B word, even by other women, a sign of how internalized misogyny lingers inside many of us. Recovering from being a nice person has been an ongoing examination of how much our identity is relied on the external validation of others and how deeply that need to be nice embeds itself. Being too nice can also be a sign of deeper issues. You might wonder why you're this way. It can be low self-esteem, codependency, which is an addiction to another person, or insecurity. It can also mean that someone is putting others' needs ahead of their own, which again leads to resentment and frustration. So here are some things to consider if you're concerned you might be too nice. Be self-validating. Treat yourself with respect and confront anyone who is taking advantage of you. Don't look for your worth outside of yourself. Be aware of the thoughts that lead to people-pleasing and remember that you're not responsible for others' feelings. Imagine yourself standing up for yourself. Take a risk and be open and honest with others, even if it means letting them know when something isn't acceptable. It's going to be really uncomfortable. And just a little reminder, when you first begin to set boundaries with people who you haven't before, especially if they have any narcissistic traits or just generally controlling, they're going to push back. They're going to get upset. They're going to push back, whether it's in the workplace, your family, your friends, in the community. They're not going to like it. It's not about them liking you. Again, you're not out to get the likes. In this society where how many likes did your post get? No, we're going to pull away from that because I think really reinforcing the being too nice syndrome. So you're going to start thinking about what your needs are and not worrying so much about what their needs are. Here are 10 signs that you are indeed too nice. And you may not identify with all of these items, but at least 3 of these statements will ring true for you if you're too nice. And I'm going to guess probably more. 1, you end up doing things you don't want to do. 2, when people want something, they come to you. 3, you always put others before yourself. 4, you tend to agree with people. You're compliant. 5, you find yourself adopting other people's styles, clothes, language. 6, you really want to fit in and want people to like you. 7, people are not that interested in what you want. 8, you dislike letting people down. 9, you rarely voice your own ideas or opinions. And 10, you often feel directionless, disappointed, or resentful. And I got to tell you, back when I was first brought to my attention by a therapist I was seeing, and it stung. And I had always kind of prided myself on being a nice person. Now I pride myself on being a kind, compassionate person. So, how does it happen? How does it happen that you get to be too nice, and what can you do about it? The most likely answer on this is that somewhere along the line, you have needed to fit in for your own self preservation. And this part of ourselves is called the adapted child. We adapt to get our needs fulfilled. And unfortunately, if this is a family dynamic, then it becomes a habit in our way of interacting with the world. That can be an abusive family situation, neglectful family situation, uh, both parents working long hours and having little time, which is an unintentional neglect, but emotional neglect nonetheless. This is not very rewarding for us and often means we do not show our authentic selves for fear of rejection. And later in life, it can come to a point where you're not even sure what your authentic self is. That's a wonderful launching point into doing some real personal growth. We can become a different person and be in wonderful ways when we intentionally work on our personal growth. There's nothing wrong with being nice, but it needs to be on your own terms. Sometimes we practice self-sacrifice for our families, our children, because we love them so much and they're so important. I know I have, or because we want to repay a favor. That's fine. But sometimes this becomes habitual and we really just push aside our own needs. And this becomes unhealthy and it causes unhappiness, anxiety, depression, and resentment. Part of the problem may be that you've never really voiced what it is that you do want. Maybe you don't even know what you want. You may be in the habit of going along with other people or being agreeable to the point where people do not actually know what you think or what you want. You need to start asking of situations, how does this situation work for me? If you find it doesn't work for you, then you need to speak up for yourself and explain why. This may be difficult if you haven't done this before, and if you've developed a pleasing others, then you will feel very uncomfortable voicing your opinions and needs. Please others people will have developed over a lifetime of adapting, so be gentle with yourself as you unpick this very unhelpful behavior. It's an unlearning process. You're going to learn some new tools to work with instead of pushing aside your needs. So practice is the key, as it is for almost everything. How do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. Start small with family or friends, trusted people, where the chance of rejection is small and low risk. And ask for something you want and expect to get it. Our expectations often dictate how we are treated. You need to be thinking, if the other person does not consider my needs and wants, do I really want to be in a relationship with them? That's something I remember asking myself a lot and occasionally still do when I feel like they are not taking what I need into consideration. You need to start to think about what pleases you as well as those around you. And when you start to feel more brave, you sometimes need to ask others to fit around you or to accommodate what you want. This is not an easy task, but it is important for your health and well-being. One of the things that comes to mind about on this particular point is how women will push through health issues to do what they've agreed to do, they've promised to do, someone's expecting it at the absolute of their own health. Making yourself continue with a commitment despite having a terrible flu, a migraine. It's okay to have circumstances where it no longer works for you. If it's not life or death, it's okay to let somebody know they're going to need to take over. From old studies that although being the boss can be stressful, it's the people in more subservient positions who really suffer. A measure of control and self-direction is important for all of us. It is part of our self-esteem and identity to have likes and dislikes, wants and needs. If you really don't know what you want, then you need to try things out and decide for yourself. Experiment a little. Once you know what you like and want, asking for it becomes easier. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself asking, they're going to go, "What do you want?" You're going to be like, "Yeah, I don't know," or "I can't put it into words." So come up with the words before you have that interaction. So yes, you can be nice, but at your convenience. And I prefer if we really start flipping that to let's encourage one another to be kind and compassionate and skip the nice. It is not good for us when we leave our own desires and needs unmet. There should be no need to distort who we are and what we want as adults. The world requires some give and take from all of us, but to thrive, we need to find out who we are and then fulfill ourselves as that person. And this takes time and care, but it can be enjoyable trying out new things and situations and working out what you believe in and what you don't believe in. If you did not get this opportunity in childhood, take the chance now, give it to yourself, and start developing you until you can flourish as an independent adult who knows what they want and feels that at least some of the time they can ask for it. I do believe there's a time and a place, and timing is very important. So when a window or door is open to you for an opportunity to ask for what you want, take it. Again, being nice is a dangerous game. Taken too far, we pay personal cost, damage relationships, jeopardize our safety, perpetrate inequality, and hamstring our impact in the workplace. To be very clear, I'm not against compassion, service, empathy, or kindness. I taught my daughter manners. I value courtesy and believe in helping others, especially people who find it difficult to help themselves. But like all positive traits, there is a shadow side to being nice. Since the cost of too much niceness is inauthenticity, weak connection, inequality, burnout, and weak results, you are better off being compassionate and judiciously kind. I hope this has been helpful for you. And if you find some truth in this for yourself, this is a great time to work on it. There's some wonderful books out there too, even workbooks that can help you through. And there's also therapy that can help you achieve this a little faster. Tune in next week. The topic is physical items for spiritual protection. These are going to be items you can touch and hold that you can use to protect yourself from spiritual attacks. And in the meantime, may your angels surround you. May your angels protect you every moment, every day of your life. I'll see you next week.